I was going through this particular topic, the climate, and I was discussing the Group A tropical humid climate. This is class 11th NCRT. Here I understand two particular things it mentions. The first one is the tropical wet climate AF. It says it is near the equator. That's perfectly fine. The A term for the tropical and F for the precipitation throughout the year. That's perfectly fine. You understand it is a tropical region. It's a high temperature region, convectional currents, you get the rainfall throughout the year. That's perfectly fine. And then it mentions the tropical monsoon one. That's also very well understood. It says eastern part of South America, perfectly fine. It says Australia, and it says India. The India gets the monsoon winds, and you basically understand A for tropical region and M for monsoon region. But when we study this particular tropical wet and dry climate AW, it is something that got me. I want you to show it here on this map. Okay, here you can clearly understand that the region this AW is talking about, A for tropical, that means this equatorial region, 0 degree, and he talks about W, that means winter dry. So the region we are talking about does not receive rainfall during the winters at all. So here we have to understand that he's talking about this particular region above the equator and this particular region in the South America. But if we see here in the African continent, he says that the Central Africa and the southern portion, means this particular belt he is talking about, does not receive rainfall during the winters. Now see here, let me show it here. What happens during the summers? The intertropical convergence zone, that means when the easterly comes from this side and this side, the convectional currents rise the wind up, so this particular region receives rainfall throughout the year. But what happens in summers? In the summers, this intertropical convergence zone shifts slightly towards the northern hemisphere. Thus, that particular line will be considered as the equator. So, there on that particular line, it's going to have convectional currents. It's going to rain in this particular region during the summers. But what happens in the winters is interesting. See, in the winters, this intertropical convergence zone shifts slightly towards the southern hemisphere. Not that much of the northern hemisphere, because there is less land mass in the southern hemisphere, though it's going to be slightly turning towards the southern hemisphere. But we know that this particular belt is under the influence of easterly, and we know it shifts slightly towards the left in the southern hemisphere. Thus the wind is going to travel this way, and this particular region is going to receive rainfall here, not here in this belt. That's the case with the Africa as well. Okay, if this is 0 degree, it shifts slightly this way. Now this particular belt is under the influence of easterly. The rainfall is going to be here, not here. That's why he uses the term AW. Let me show it here. See here, what happens is that if considering this is equator, it shifts slightly upward, making it NITCZ. Okay, now this particular line acts as equator, and through convectional currents it receives the rainfall. But what happens in the, so this particular thing we talk about, AW, receives rainfall in the summers, that's clear. But what happens in the winters is that this line, equatorial intertropical convergence zone, shifts slightly towards the south, not much, because there is lack of land mass here, so it shifts slightly downwards, and this is the influence of easterly. The rain is received here, not here. That's the case. Let me show it again. What I'm saying is that once this equatorial region shifts slightly here, this is under the influence of easterly. In the southern hemisphere, it is going to shift slightly towards the left. That's okay. and this particular belt doesn't receive rainfall at all. It is this particular region that receives the rainfall. That's why it is mentioned as AW. Hope that makes you understand this particular concept. Thank you.